Do you notice the constant desire of a large part of the people around you to show off, to demonstrate what they have, and to put in the foreground everything that they think can help them look like they are ahead in life? Be it possessions, vacations, diplomas, knowledge, appearance, professional achievements, our selfishness and narcissism reach higher and higher levels, and our desire to help others, to get closer to them, to be the reason for someone's smile, is somehow lost. Because it seems that there is always at least one problem of yours that is more important than the possibility of pleasing someone else. Who is to blame for our growing lust for ostentation and our disappearing empathy, we won't discuss now. But we will talk about the quiet understanding and perception of the world around us, so quiet and imperceptible to others, and at the same time so real to us. They say that the more you announce your happiness to others, the shorter you will enjoy it. That the more intransigent and aggressive you are against what you don't like, the deeper you get into it and it begins to take up more and more of your life. And does this bring us a positive feeling, or the opposite? Haven't we long forgotten about words like innocence, sincerity, and awareness? And do we know what that little word that we hear and use less and less often means, called humility? For some people, the word humility is synonymous with weakness and indifference. They haven't even looked for its real meaning. Or rather, they haven't discovered it simply because they haven't felt it. The feeling of knowing that you are strong and resilient, and at the same time ready to meet everything in your path with your eyes wide open, ready to understand it and let it in your life. Because there are often things we can't fight, and the more we try to push them away, the weaker, primal, and somewhat embittered we become, and that can't be in our favor. The essence of humility is to accept the existence of absolutely everything as it is. This doesn't mean that you should not oppose the negative things in your path, that you should accept them as your truth or norm, but to be in a constant process of awareness. Do I need this? Will it lead me to something good? Or should I let it pass by me? There are situations in which the best solution is to simply agree with them. Let them pass through your life without creating unnecessary fears and dramas. Humility is to be non-judgmental. Humility is to not constantly narrow yourself the passage from which you look at life. Not to constantly put a label, a frame, a limit on everything. It's humility to try to ignore this incessant need to subdue the world in our mind, to take every thought and put it in a box and stamp over it, this is true, or this is not true, or he is right, I am right. Simply because things are constantly changing, we are changing. Everything is in constant motion. Assessments ossify our minds, make them clumsy, difficult to adapt to changes. The world is understood in its constant movement, in the capture of the moving particles, and not in some definable stagnation in which we can confine it and pass judgments on what it is and what it's not. It's not rare that someone is not in their right to act in one way or another towards us, but think carefully about the two options of reaction on your part. In one case, you are trying to make yourself a victim, and you want to make the life of the one who did that to you miserable. In the other, you simply tell yourself that this is how it was meant to be and move on, without unnecessary waste of nerves and emotions. Certainly the second option is far more gentle for your mind, and makes you realize the insignificance of many situations that you see as way too important. And in the grand context of life, they really aren't. Because at the end of the day, everyone has the right to choose. And when the choice of the one against you affects you, the best decision is to think about what is happening, and if it is not a life or death question, just withdraw. And this withdrawal will not be a failure, an escape, or a weakness, but quite the opposite. It will be strength and wisdom, knowledge and understanding. We can achieve full awareness and wholeness only when we are ready to accept everything and keep our head straight after this acceptance of everything.
No ściam.
No sense of defeat. No dark thoughts. Humbleness is let the light to enter in our mind and heart. It is an understanding and feeling of God, of the power of the universe. It gives us a clear idea of ourselves, about our insignificance, understanding that we often turn small setbacks into big problems, and thus begin to live in a false world of ours that has nothing to do with reality. The most elementary example: you were fired unexpectedly. Most of you will make this the event of the year, of the decade even. Talk about what happened, complain and explain the situation over and over again. There will be those who will simply accept the injustice, leave it in the box of events from their lives, and move on to new events on their way. If you start looking for a job the very next day without looking back, without feeling sorry for yourself and your circumstances, your chance to preserve yourself and harmony in your life is many times greater than if you go looking for justice, not wanting to appear like you are resigning. Being humble doesn't mean being resigned. You will resign yourself if you accept the situation to be out of work for a long time, only feeling pity yourself. And by humbling yourself, you will keep the peace in your soul, your balance, and your wisdom. In fact, you cannot be humble if you are not at least a little wise, and above all if you haven't yet found yourself. People often believe they should never accept their circumstances, that they should fight back. But life shouldn't be a constant fight with your destiny, fighting until the end, until you lose everything, even losing yourself. Throw your peace in the fire just to win the battle is for the weak. They are always fighting with themselves, fighting against something and someone. They accept evil as an enemy, not as an inevitable part of life. The weak think that victory is only when you win, when you don't lean, when you always try to resist and never adapt. But to me, a greater victory is that loss which is born without grumbling and a lesson learned from it. Victories bring confidence, but not wisdom. We give in to our primal emotions and seek to solve problems by creating new ones. Life should not be a struggle for happiness, but to bring happiness. It is not a struggle for love, but creating love and predisposing people to love back. This has nothing to do with being feisty. Humbleness is to have a glimpse of an eternal winner. One should know that he is a winner in every second, every minute, and every moment, because he is learning what he is supposed to learn. Even in the greatest disappointment, if it is experienced with firmness and calmness, one can and should feel victorious and like he overcame his problem. Those of us who are constantly fighting against everything don't choose their battles. Those who are the defensive against everything and everyone end up getting tired, exhausted. They fight against evil, but this fight can only make them bitter. In this struggle, they destroy and humiliate themselves. In the fight against things they don't like or approve, they also fill themselves with anger in order to be equal opposite force to it, and to convince ourselves that we can defeat it. And no matter how wrong this perception is, it is live among the masses and it's here to stay. Always fighting back is a good alternative for those who do not know how to live, but a bad alternative for those who already know. Fighters run from injustice and pursue retribution. But as is often the case, what you run from catches up with you, and what you chase remains an elusive goal. So don't run from some things, don't chase others. Humility is to not make your life either a fight against someone, nor to be always defensive from something, always angry at destiny for the things that happen to you. Some people search for themselves all their lives and never make it. In their quest to be feisty, purposeful, always seeking and wanting, never giving up and always smiling, they lose who they are. They lose their weakness, in which there is nothing shameful. Everyone should cry sometimes and accept that life doesn't bring us only joys. They lose their modesty and sincerity, qualities that these days seem to not be valued, but are more than valuable. Humility is not the lack of initiative or desire to stand up for yourself, your own views and desires. However, it exists to remind us that only when we are ready to accept everything around us and everything that happens in our lives without protest will we be able to move forward much more calmly, confidently, and wisely. Some things are beyond our control, and when they happen to us, besides having the strength to accept them, we must also have the will to submit to them. It is humbling to feel emotionally broken, but to let yourself to those feelings, because they can make you much better and aware. In fact, to be a little more humble, you need nothing more than 1. To start liking your life and what you have without looking at what others have. 2. To give thanks daily for your little world. And remember that happiness is not in the big impressive things and achievements, in almost unattainable dreams, but in the small, for you, and actually the biggest things in your life. Having a roof over your head, food on your table, maybe a child, a family, a partner. This is the real big one. And no, that doesn't mean you shouldn't want something else, but not at all costs and price. Remember that if something isn't coming into your life, it's just not meant to be. There are some unwritten laws that you have no control over. 3. To believe that everything is happening for your good. There are loads of sad, lonely, desperate, and scary moments in everyone's life, but we are not born to laugh all the time. And each of us has to go through both the good and the bad in order to humble ourselves, to find ourselves, to grow. We need to go through the feeling of being small and weak, and accept it. Only then will it become bigger and stronger. Humility is accepting reality and our limitations. It removes our expectations for something to happen sooner, better, stronger. It reduces the need to compare ourselves to others. It brings us back to ourselves, our needs and desires, springing from our very essence, not imposed by society. When we accept ourselves as we are, self-criticism is greatly reduced. The unrealistic goals are gone. Yes, it's sad that we won't win a Nobel Prize or save the world, but we find that the life of an ordinary person also brings a lot of joy. We manage to find pleasure to every small achievement, instead of belittling it, waiting for the big hit, waiting for some big events and experiences. And sometimes, with tiny, steady steps forward, we manage to reach what we failed to do with our attempt to a great leap. We usually don't want to accept reality about ourselves or the world because we've been taught that if we do, then we've failed, that we've resigned. We are expected to constantly struggle, hustle, and move only forward and upward. Navigating the tension between accepting the limitations of our reality and maintaining a sense of humility about our place in history, while avoiding conformism, requires a delicate balance. This balance hinges on understanding our own potential, recognizing the contributions of others, and striving for personal growth and societal betterment without succumbing to complacency. Acceptance of reality involves recognizing the constraints imposed by our circumstances, abilities, and external factors. This acceptance is not about surrendering to defeat, but rather about acknowledging the practical limits within which we operate. It requires a clear-eyed assessment of our strengths and weaknesses, as well as an understanding of the broader societal and environmental conditions that shape our lives. This perspective helps in setting realistic goals and devising actionable plans to achieve them. It is about making peace with the fact that some aspirations may be out of reach due to factors beyond our control. Humility in this context refers to the awareness that not everyone is destined to leave an indelible mark on the annals of history. This recognition is crucial in avoiding the pitfalls of egotism and unrealistic expectations. Most people will not become the next Einstein, Gandhi, or Marie Curie, and that's perfectly acceptable. Humility teaches us that every contribution, no matter how small, has intrinsic value. It helps us appreciate the efforts of those around us and fosters a sense of community and mutual respect. Avoiding conformism is about resisting the pressure to simply blend in or follow the crowd without critical thought. It involves maintaining a spirit of individuality and a commitment to one's principles and passions. Conformism stifles creativity and innovation, leading to a stagnant society. By actively choosing not to conform, individuals can push boundaries, challenge the status quo, and contribute to progress in unique ways. This does not mean rejecting all norms and traditions, but rather critically evaluating them and deciding independently which to embrace and which to challenge. The interplay between accepting limitations, being humble, and avoiding conformism can be seen as a dynamic balance. Acceptance of reality provides a grounding effect, preventing us from chasing unattainable dreams and suffering unnecessary disappointment. Humility ensures that we remain open to learning and appreciative of the diverse contributions of others. Meanwhile, the refusal to conform pushes us to innovate and strive for excellence within the bounds of our accepted reality.
This balance can be illustrated through the lives of many influential figures who, while accepting their limitations and remaining humble, have also resisted conformism. Consider the story of Helen Keller, who, despite her disabilities, accepted her reality but refused to conform to societal expectations of what a blind and deaf person could achieve. Her humility is evident in her advocacy for others with disabilities, and her refusal to conform led her to become an author and activist, leaving a lasting impact. Humility is the ability to admit that we are weak, that we can't, keeping a good opinion to ourselves. At this point, we become able to accept help and support without immediately rushing to return it, without this making us feel weak, humiliated, like we are a failure or in debt. You probably know people who try to return the favor the very second, depriving you of the pleasure of feeling like a good and helpful person. When we accept ourselves with all the pros and cons, it is much easier to accept the other. We give up the illusion that we need a prince on a white horse or a superwoman. We don't go into a relationship expecting to change our partner. That's why we choose more carefully. We are able to forgive and accept some of his flaws and enjoy his good sides because we have accepted that we too are not perfect. Unfortunately, situations always arise in life in which the only way out is humility. Whether it is the loss of a loved one, of relationships, of health, money, dignity, dreams. This is usually the moment when people turn to a psychologist for help. This is the breaking point, after which we never go back to be the same again. We lose a part of ourselves and our innocence forever. And this is their opportunity to gradually learn an acceptance that enriches our daily life in unexpected ways. Become your own best friend in this process. Be patient with yourself. Always strive to give your best, but don't demand life to pay you with the same all the time. Life follows its own course and its own plan. And although most of the time our best gets us what we want and is the determinant factor, sometimes there are things that are out of our control. And also, sometimes the reason we can't find a solution to a problem is that it's not something we need to solve. It's a situation to be accepted and a lesson we need to learn in order to keep moving forward, this time a little better, a little wiser, and a little more humble. So accept reality as it is. Accept things you can't change and that are out of your reach. Accept your limitations. Always demand the best from yourself. Make sure you gave it all. But after you've done that, just let it be and let it in God's hands. Always demand the maximum from within, your best when it comes to you. But be grateful and humble for whatever comes from the outside. Forgive yourself. Forgive life for not always giving you what you want, exactly how you want it. And accept that everything follows a God's plan and happens on the right moment. Forgive yourself for not always be the highest achiever. Define yourself by your trajectory, your habits, and your daily progress, not by your current place in life, right now, and current results. Life is much simpler, much happier this way. The difference between accepting the limitations of our reality and being humble about our significance, while avoiding conformism, lies in the nuanced understanding of our individual and collective potential. It requires a balanced approach that acknowledges constraints without succumbing to them, fosters a sense of humility without diminishing our self-worth, and encourages a spirit of innovation without blind adherence to norms. By navigating this balance, individuals can lead fulfilling lives, contributing meaningfully to society while retaining a sense of purpose and individuality. Humility sounds old and unnecessary in our fast-paced modern lives, but it can relieve us from excessive waste of energy, from loneliness, from overindulging in food, alcohol, games, or possessions. And the best thing is that with humility comes gratitude for everything we have and have experienced. And with it comes peace in the soul. Just accept that there are and always will be things that are beyond our control, beyond our reach.